10 key facts international students should know about Canada's postgraduate work permit. All right, and for ease, I'm going to call that PGWP all throughout this video. Normally, when an international student program is coming to an end, they have a lot of options they can consider. And one of the options is applying for a PGWP, postgraduate work permit. All right. Now, this video would, give you crucial insight into the PGWP application process to help you understand the intricacies of the program and the associated rules and policies. So yeah, let's get into it. Number one, PGWP as a role in gaining Canadian work experience. Now, a major benefit of the PGWP is that it enables international students to gain professional work experience in Canada. Now, this work experience is important when PGWP holders go on to apply for Canadian immigration, like the PR, all right? Now, many of Canada's, over 100 different immigration pathways rewards candidates who have studied and or worked in Canada. All right, so you have a really, really high chance. Usually, a PGWP holder will need 1 year of professional work experience in a national occupation classification. They call that NOC code. Code O, A, or B to be eligible for a Canadian permanent residency program. Yeah. Number two, to be eligible for the PGWP, you must have held full-time student status. So in order to be considered a full-time student, you must have held full-time student status every academic session of the program or programs of the study completed and included as part of your post-graduation work permit application. So you cannot stop halfway. You have to actually go through school till the end. All right. Now, although Canada has waived this requirement during the COVID-19 pandemic for some international students, exceptions may apply to those who have begun or will begin a program between spring 2020 and summer of 2022. Or those whose program were already in progress in March 2020. But because we're in 2023 right now, this doesn't hold for you guys anymore. You have to hold, a full-time student status. Now, other eligibility criteria includes completed studies, in program that is at least 8 months long at an eligible designated learning institution. We call that DLI. Study program must have led to a degree, diploma, or other certificate. Another of the option is that you would have received a transcript and an official letter from the eligible DLI confirming that the applicant has met, the requirements to complete their program of study. Now, number three, the third thing you should know. The PGWP cannot be renewed and you can only apply for one PGWP in your lifetime. Although you cannot renew your PGWP, you may be able to extend your postgraduate work permit if it was limited in duration by your passport expiration date. All right, now the validity period of your PGWP may not go beyond your passport validity date. If this is the case, you have to apply for a work permit extension upon the renewal of your passport in order to receive the full validity of your PGWP. So if you decide to return to school after applying for the PGWP, you will not be able to receive a new postgraduate work permit for additional programs of study. Yep. Further, any period of full-time study while working will not count towards Canadian work experience for Canadian immigration purposes. Number four, you can apply to extend your PGWP before it expires if you qualify for a different type of work permit. So if your postgraduate work permit is expiring, you can look into a different type of work permit, like an open work permit or an employer-specific work permit. Now, if you meet all the requirements of this work permit and apply for it before your postgraduate work permit, expires, you may have maintained status to continue working in Canada. Number five, maintain status grants you legal status while you wait for your extension to be processed. Now, under the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act, IRPA, all foreign nationals that are authorized to enter Canada have temporary resident status. So all temporary residents have an automatically imposed condition that they must leave Canada at the end of their authorized period of stay. However, by the way, a temporary resident may apply to extend their period of authorized stay before it ends. So if you have done this, your period of authorized stay as a temporary resident is extended by law until a decision is made. And in addition to this, you're considered to have legal status as a temporary resident during the processing period. Now, moving on to the sixth thing you should know. Now, some postgraduate work permit applicants can work full time while they wait for the processing of their PGWP application, even if they live or enter Canada. Now, if you're a graduate who applies for a postgraduate work permit before the expiry of your student permit, you're eligible to work full time without a work permit while waiting for a decision on your application if all of the following applies. Now, I'm going to mention them. Now, number one, if you are or were the holder of a valid study permit at the time of the postgraduate work permit application, if you have completed your program of study, if you have also met the requirement of working off campus without a work permit, this means that if you were a full-time student enrolled at a DLI in a post-secondary academic, vocational, or professional training program of at least 8 months in duration that led to a degree, diploma, or any type of certificate. All right, now if also you did not exceed the allowable hours of work, you can remain eligible to work full-time without a work permit while waiting for a decision on your application, even after leaving and re-entering Canada. But you must stop working immediately if you are notified by Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada IRCC that your work permit has been refused. You got to stop. Now, the seventh thing is that study permits become invalid 90 days after the end of the study program. So it is important to keep that in mind that the study permit will become invalid 90 days after the end of a study program. So you must apply for a PGWP within 180 days of obtaining proof that you have met the requirements for completing your program of study. So you got to apply for that in time. Now, the days will begin to run when your final marks are issued or the day formal written notification of program completion is received, whichever one comes first out of the two. Now, if your study permit becomes invalid or expires before you apply for a postgraduate work permit, you are not eligible to work without a permit and must either leave Canada and apply for a PGWP overseas, or apply to restore your status as a student by applying for a PGWP you'd have to pay money for that, and paying the fees to also restore your status as a student will also cost you something. All right, now moving on to the eighth thing. If your study permit is expired before you apply for a postgraduate work permit, there are several options of how and where to apply. All right. So if your study permit becomes invalid or expires before you apply, one of the options is to leave Canada and apply for a postgraduate work permit overseas. Like, now let me share with you one interesting fact. You can actually submit an application outside Canada while still remaining physically in Canada. So instead of going back to your home country, you just have to remain in Canada as a visitor until you receive the actual work permit. All right. The next thing you should know is that you can actually ignore the 120 days validity upon receipt of the postgraduate work permit application, because normally when you submit the application, you receive an auto-generated letter from IRCC. Now, this letter will grant 120 validity period to continue working. You can actually ignore this, all right? Now, this 120 days is based on the theoretical work permit processing time, which is 120 days for in-Canada applications, all right? Now, historically, RCC has met its service standards more than 90% of the time, and most people should receive a decision on the application before the 120 days finally runs out, all right? But in case you don't receive, an answer and the 120 days has actually, passed, then you know what to do. I've mentioned it earlier. All right, now the last but not the least thing you should know is that spouses and partners of postgraduate work permit holders may be eligible for a work permit. Yes. So spouses and common law partners of postgraduate work permit holders may be eligible to apply for a work permit under the C41 exception. Now, in order for your spouse or common law partner to be eligible, the PGWP holder must be authorized to work in Canada for a period of at least 6 months after spouse or common law's open work permit application is received. The main applicant has to be employed in a high skilled occupation such as the NOCOA or B. All right. The main applicant has to be physically residing or plans to physically reside in Canada while employed. All right. So, in case you want to schedule a work permit consultation, you can actually do that with us at Marksman Travels and Tours. Or if you're someone who is just considering, the countries to choose, whether it is the UK or it's Canada or any other country, and you're torn, you don't know what to do, you can actually book a consultation with us. We would let you know, the advantages that each of those countries have. Then you'll be able to pick the one you'd want to pursue. And yes, I work with Marksman Travels and Tours. It's an agency that is absolutely transparent and 100% legit. All right. So we help you with visa applications for different reasons and to different countries. Anyone you have an issue with, just let us know. We would definitely, reach out to you and help you sort it out. All right. We have amazing reviews on our social media platforms. Make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on all social media platforms. So whenever we drop videos like this, you get to be notified ASAP. Yeah.